Wake up, buy here, pay here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here, Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Oh, goodness. Good morning, everyone.
Hey, y'all. Welcome. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah.
TGIF.
Yeah.
All of the things.
Yeah.
Wednesday, for some reason, I think it's because it was just such a nice day and I was planning on doing some stuff outside. I kept thinking, it's Friday. It was like,
Oh, yeah?
No, it's only Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's Friday.
Well,
it's Friday.
As folks know, a lot of our listeners are car dealers or whatever is self-employed. And so it's like the weekends aren't exactly the same when you're self-employed. But
We work on the weekends or we don't work on.
Right.
And it's,
Sometimes. I mean,
Sometimes.
it obviously varies based on the demands of what's happening. But that's about just having the discipline and managing your schedule and whatever.
Yeah. And it's nice. It's really one of the big perks of that.
Of course.
So, yeah.
So any big announcements from your side? Any news? I mean, obviously we're here to talk about the new podcast, but any other things going on with you?
No.
I might just kind of give an update. We had to reschedule one of our V8 meetings because of internet challenge. I mean, that's one of the things about virtual is that we're fortunate. I mean, we haven't had that happen. I think this is the only time we've had to because of that. But,
I mean,
anyway.
it was like an area wide outage, which is just kind of screwy because they came through, a different provider came through and put in new lines.
Sure. And
just like sidewalks are lifted weird and also because they were using that stuff that drills under the ground. And so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but
seems like
we'll
it probably
see.
was. But so last meeting though was our V8 group with our newcomer group.
Yes.
And we always try to put that one toward the end of the month so we can see data from the other dealers groups that are coming in. And last night was interesting. I hadn't told you about this part yet. Like the conversation was kind of an agenda around, and keep in mind in those meetings, we spend more time sort of coaching and
it's kind of like
educating.
A group coaching session
it becomes
in a way
that because that
around the
group,
numbers.
Numbers are smaller. They're not as relevant, as far as comparison and when they're new. And so we do tend to bring more, they get more value out of the numbers of what's happening with the other groups and what kind of establish to work toward, et cetera. But last night was the first time I presented to them the data from the larger groups, which are, right now in V8, the larger groups are running between 500 and 2,000 accounts. Is that how those are grouped? And you've got some dealers in there with 1,800 and 2,000 accounts. And so when they see numbers like 25 million in the portfolio and dealers bringing in, I mean, this is literally, we had dealers snapping photos of the screen, during the session
so that they
don't get to see numbers like that very often. Right. And so I just thought it was kind of telling. Our conversation last night was really around data, software, capital, and kind of all the connection, all the connecting threads between those things. Go ahead.
It's, the fact that they were snapping pictures, it just really, it goes to show there's so many dealers out there that feel like they're on a lone island. And it's just, they are not aware of what's happening elsewhere and what's possible. And so I bet you, because many of those dealers are newer, have very small portfolios, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I'm sure I can just hear it in my head. It's like, oh my gosh, that's what I can do. That's where I can go.
Some of these dealers don't have $300,000 portfolios. And what they were able to see on the screen is there are dealers in there that are collecting $300,000 a month in interest. And so
just an interest.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like that just kind of gives you a feel. Now, they may not aspire to have that, but in the context of our conversation last night about capital, like, this is just a capital intensive business, right? I mean, how much money would that dealer have invested?
And that's like everyone's always interested. How can I get capital? Where can I get it?
So last night's conversations were around capital and cash flow and sort of key metrics. And really it was a kind of a zoomed out view about why software and data become so important in our industry, because our ability to get to capital, more affordable capital, to attract capital, into this segment at all, is really around how good is the data? Like what can we really lean on in terms of, the value of that data? Reliability.
I remember we did a all day long event on enterprise value. And data was one of the things that was like one of the pillars of the strength of your business to anyone outside of your business. That can be capital, that can be someone that's going to buy the business, that can be an investment partner, whatever, is that data and being able to string data together in a easily presentable fashion, especially for a bank. If you're going to talk to a bank, or whatever, to have that data. So,
and that's why we talked about some of the metrics last night were around this idea that, and you're right. I would say, so I made the point of what kind of data, like what would be the best kind of data scenario, right? And then we talked about this idea that, when you have the ability to run some projections, right? Have enough history to be able to extrapolate the next 12, 24 months, whatever it looks like. Think about what that means for us as dealers, right? To be able to say, okay, this is what I can anticipate that the customers will repay me. And now taking that to the lender or investor side is now I can see what the cash flows are that would repay me if I were to invest. So, but the data needs to be validated. It's one thing to just run a report, say we got this much in receivables, and you need more.
Yeah. And when you can string it together over years, and especially, if a bank or someone, they know that there was a dip in the economy, or they know there was a whatever. And if they can see over time how you fared during that, one of the things that Jim has said so many times is that there's a level of predictability when you start to string those things that when a down, as long as you've got your money coming in and your deal within a certain framework of structure, it's like there becomes a predictability, which is what a bank wants to see, which is what an investor wants to see, or someone that's going to purchase your business.
Of course. And so remember, we're here to talk about the upcoming podcast. And let me kind of connect the dots between that conversation last night and kind of the conversations that I'd had in the weeks leading up to that. Of course, capital is always a hot topic in our sector, right? Because again, we're in a capital intensive business. So the conversations are often around capital. And in light of the things that we have seen in recent weeks in particular, I personally have witnessed, either through clients or through V8 members or just dealers in social media, people where we have other relationships, we have seen some shifting in the capital market. We've seen evidence of shifting. We've seen evidence of lenders reworking, terms at renewal, right? We've seen a foreclosure. We've seen some stuff happen that is an indication that think the ground is shifting a little bit, and that doesn't have to. That's not
it's happened
alarmist.
In the past,
right?
And
it always
happens.
It's the nature of the money ebbs and flows.
Again, for someone that's new, they wouldn't know that this is part of a pattern of the different things that happen. So we're just letting you know it's a pattern. These things, people come in and out. Capital providers come in and out. All of that.
And I'm the last guy who's going to bring these conversations around. We chose Market Watch partly because we went out social media and they said Market Watch. We also Market Watch makes sense to me because we have in that label the opportunity to watch markets that are not just capital. We can watch inventory market side, right, as well, and kind of keep dealers abreast on what we're seeing there. And so this is what you can expect to see us do. And I'm the farthest thing from an alarmist. I'm kind of on the record over the years of saying, I think buy here, pay here pretty much is going to remain the same as long as our employment and our local market stays the same, right? These are local dealers servicing their own paper and servicing local customers. I think that market's pretty much going to stay the same. I think the demand for automobiles is going to be the same. Will it eventually shift into electric or, there'll be more ride sharing stuff, of course. But as long as we have people who need and want a personal vehicle to get back and forth to work, I think you're going to have people who provide that kind of financing in a tough credit situation. As a result, it's always going to require some capital, and it's important for us to keep an eye on that. And we've got dealers. The other thing that's happened, we've got dealers who are looking to improve their rates, right? They're looking to find a more affordable money. And so you start to look at what has to happen, what are the challenges, what are the barriers to be able to that prevent us from being able to help a dealer get refinanced at a better rate,
Oh yeah.
And so these are all things that we are just kind of watching, and it's going to be fun with this special track. And so we already recorded this earlier in the week. We recorded with Alan Keat, and for those that are not familiar with Alan, I'll let you meet him through that pilot podcast. But I can just share with you, Alan is somebody who started out in his career in the investment sector.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy who is funny. I kind of had to stop him because he's sitting, as we're talking through that, he's talking all these acronyms that he's used to from the financial sector.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm over here, the buy here, pay here guy with little exposure to that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's fun because Alan will be a recurring guest with us, kind of a featured guest. And I love that because he does have his experience with capital kind of picks up where mine leaves off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down here in operations with some understanding of the financial and accounting aspect of buy here, pay here, and working some with business planning, right, for helping dealers capitalize. And now Alan comes in here with understanding the capital markets. And we've had that first conversation was really rich around this thing about barriers. Like why doesn't, he said, it's a legitimate asset class, buy here, pay here. But what keeps capital from coming into this sector is a number of things. And so we went through that in that conversation. And, I would say people can tune in to catch that. And people who know Alan know he's super bright.
Yeah.
Right?
Our intention is that will be released sometime in April.
Yeah, it will be. It's it just needs a little editing, and we've got to kind of get some graphics.
But you do have some clips, or you do have a clip.
I just have a photo. I just have an image.
Oh, just a photo. Oh, okay.
Just so
okay. I was thinking that you had a clip.
Know Alan by face. I wanted them to see Alan was at his office in Texas.
Yeah.
And so anyway, Alan is just somebody that is somebody who understands that sector a little bit more. He just kind of lives in that world and has more of his career's been over there. And so I think he's somebody that, as the host of the show, my intention is just to sort of be the voice of dealers and ask the questions that I think dealers would want to know if they were, in the conversation. And I would just put the call out here today. Like, if you know people that really can speak to these sectors, especially the actual movement of money above, I'll call it above buy here, pay here. And how that's going to affect movement in dollars in the buy here, pay here sector, have them reach out to me. I would love to talk to them.
I know too, we had an opportunity. Alan was just amazing. A few years ago when we were doing our RV thing across the country, we were in the Austin area. That's where his office was for like a few months.
It's probably like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. There was an awful lot that happened during that period of time, but he let us use a spare office to do a lot of educational recording and was just so gracious and his entire team so gracious. But it was fun to talk to Alan because even back then, I mean, that was like 4 years ago.
Was it? I don't know. I lost track.
I think it was. I mean, it was like 4 years ago that we talked to him about a lot of the stuff that we were doing, and he was just like on it. But it was fun to see. He's also a numbers nerd.
And you mean that lovingly, right?
I
of course.
Well, it's because my husband is one. So
it's not insulting, Alan.
I'm not at all.
Lovingly.
No, it's actually. Oh, look, another numbers nerd. Yeah. But it was fun to see him get really excited about tracking things and numbers. And that's something that really jazzes him. And so to have him on as a reoccurring guest in Market Watch, it's because that Alan he's not siloing himself in specific, he's just watching and he's got a higher understanding of like you said, those higher level market pieces that are feeding down into buy here, pay here. But it was just fun to sit with him in his office and have him like, you guys have to see this. Do you remember? And he was so excited. He was like, show and tell. You got to see this thing that I've been watching, and what this data is whatever. I have a lot of respect and all that for Alan.
Alan just knows, what a lot of numbers people know is that these numbers don't lie. I mean, you can have, there's a question of the validity, right? How much you can trust the numbers that come in, because it's that old thing about garbage in, garbage out. You got to make sure that you're working from clean numbers, which is a lot of our conversation last night in our V8 group. But it's like, we got to figure out how to get clean numbers. And I think when I zoom out and think about the remainder of my career and the work that we're going to be doing in White Hat Way, I'm just thinking we have an opportunity, and that as we have AI that's come on the scene. We have the opportunity. We have more sophisticated technology available to us in the sector than we've had. And I just want to make sure that we utilize that skillfully and for the benefit of the larger community that is the buy here, pay here industry. And I'm not talking about any one group. I'm not talking about somebody profiteering off of data. I'm talking about being able to harvest data in a way that helps dealers be more successful, helps their consumers be more successful. Of course, there would be benefit for the vendors and all the providers related to that ecosystem. And so I just think this is where Alan used the word fragmented when he talked about this sector, and I think most people would know what he means by that.
Yeah, you've used a different term.
I say it's just kind of disjointed. The same thing.
Unconnected.
I think we're talking about the same thing. It's like, you don't have, you have different DMSs. They don't play nice together. Integrations are limited and kind of, they're kind of clunky in a lot of cases. And we just have an opportunity in this sector to do what we can to make data more, word I used last night, contiguous. Like, it just needs to be strung together better so that you can draw more conclusions from it. So we're working on that, and we just see some real progress. And so this is part of what the Market Watch thing is part of. Like, let's just dig into the numbers and let's figure out what would make it attractive, for the capital space to come. And, why would probably not Warren Buffett, our sector's too small. But when you think about that kind of investor, institutional type, whatever, then what makes it make sense for them, and let's identify those barriers, and let's start, kind of eliminating those barriers so that dealers will have a chance to get access to more affordable money and to be able to build their business. And for us, it means serving more customers and, being able to reach and provide solutions for more folks. But it's going to be decided in the numbers, and the data is going to be really pivotal in all this. And this is why we basically took the opportunity last night. I took the opportunity to share with our dealers, look, we got to work together, get this data cleaned up. We got to make sure we've got tight data that is comparable and, comparative, and let's aggregate what we can and learn from it as a pool.
And that's that's been something that since I met you, it's been the frustration around DMSs having such different ways of calculating things, or that they're not getting to a number, or you can't find the number, or you can't, and things that are important for someone, Jim, as a dealer, as a numbers nerd, as a coach, as all that there are very specific things that you have been like, these are things that we should be watching and seeing, and it has been something that you've had it on your front of mind, is how do we validate for one, because there are some big pools of numbers out there, they just aren't validated.
Right.
And so, when and it's been an interesting thing that when with our V8 groups that we've had, I've never been asked to validate a single whatever. And it's like, why do we have to do this here? And it's like, because of that same reason. It's just like, so that we are comparing the same things.
Yeah. And people have to contribute, right? So I said in the group last night that my attitude, I don't use this phrase very often, but I said, in a V8 environment, and I'm sure it's the same for 20 groups, right? Like in a V8 environment, I just said, I'm taking the position that you have to give to get. You have to contribute your data in order to be able to get data from your neighbor or
Mm-hmm.
from the people in your group, right? And hopefully we'll be able to expand. That's one of the other
Mm-hmm.
points of conversation last night, is we expand that so that dealers can have data from more than just their group,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're going to start to open it up to the whole V8 system,
Mm-hmm.
so that dealers like last night, sitting there with 30 contracts, and pretty new and buy here, pay here, to be able to look at and see dealers from 500 to 2,000 accounts and be able to see what their operating expenses per car sold and all these kind of things start to really, be valuable information for them to be able to see.
Mm-hmm.
But as more than that for me is that I want those numbers to be validated.
Yes.
And we'll indicate which ones aren't validated. Like we don't input it doesn't come directly from the accounting for the expenses. For us, we're letting the dealer input. So we mark things that are dealer input, but there are a lot of numbers that are validated and sort of soft reconciliation, if you will, because dealers are busy and there's a certain amount of time you can justify giving some of these things to validate. But my feeling is, if dealers are going to make important business decisions around these numbers, let's make sure they're clean numbers.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's what I see is just a beautiful marrying of BHPH Market Watch, the data that's coming in, because the Market Watch, like you said, and I love this. I love this concept. And Jim,
what?
I love you.
Thank
I
you.
really, really do. That it's a place to go to hear about all of the things that are outside your dealership, like that affect your dealership directly. And we're not, and it's just things that the price tag fluctuates and changes. So, that's why I love that you said, like, inventory is something that you just don't know. And that affected a lot of dealers during COVID, big time. I mean, everyone knows. And then that directly affected the capital, and there had to be a lot of adjustments there because they to be able to work with the dealer. So I love this.
I'm thinking, just to give folks a feel, like I'm only just thinking about it just now because obviously the whole Market Watch thing is new, but it's easy to think about the things that affect dealers in terms of dollars, which you could argue that inventory can be overcome by dollars. However, even if you have dollars, you don't want to pay this price for inventory if you can get it for this price, right? So there's that, but then there's also the human element of kind of when you think about human capital market, like what's the market price, for employment in different markets. Like we can talk about some of those kind of things as well, just because I want to be able to watch the
recession, read, that kind of thing. What is it costing people more? Whatever
departments that the dealers have where certain markets might affect.
Love it.
Right. There's different things, which also the economy side of things, which I'm no economist, but we can certainly bring people who understand that thing as it relates to the struggles of our consumer that we all finance, right? So this will be part of what we can do through that podcast. And we just, again, today I would say, if you know folks who can speak to this sector, as an expert in any of those, kind of arenas.
Without it, like the only way you can get to this is through this.
Yeah. And we're not pitching anything. We'll be pre-recording on this one. We're not going to do
We
live
will though be taking sponsors.
Eventually,
eventually. We will be doing that. That's, with the morning show, we've been like, we're not taking outside sponsors. And that's, because it's
I would say we're taking advertisers. I mean, sponsors can
advertisers.
Right?
Yes.
Right. So we're going to be, but that will come once we kind of get it out and get a chance to verify the audience.
And we don't know yet at this point, what kind of a cadence, a schedule, that kind of thing so there's no promises yet. And there is the possibility, as we're on the precipice of thank you. I know words of like really shifting into a solid corporate structure to what it is that we're doing. And so this may be only available on our website, this Market Watch. But we'll let you know. We'll be doing some advertising. It's most likely will only be available on our website, but we will market that a new one has come out.
Yeah,
and so you can just head there and watch it.
Media, so
and I'm not sure, and I don't think that we're going to syndicate it.
I don't know.
I don't know if we're going to syndicate it.
Listen, you're going to hear the decisions being
I
made.
know.
On the spot.
Yeah.
But it really, those kind of details, like we just want to get the information to people, like, so that we can help them keep apprised of what's happening in the industry. And so we'll be monitoring the news. I think as far as cadence, what I expect is that we'll have at least a monthly drop on those. And then we'll probably have pop-ups as there news items that warrant some sort of,
things happen.
Yeah.
And it's just like, we should probably talk about that. That's timely. Yeah.
We'll probably have pop-ups like that. That's easy enough for us to pull off. But I think otherwise, just kind of, I would look for a monthly kind of regimen on this, because it just, especially when you think capital market, it doesn't move very quickly. Like, it's a slow sort of.
Well,
there are pivots.
Yes,
there are events. Yeah.
In our current ecosystem for money and governments and all of that, it is shifting.
Yeah.
It's shifting a lot faster than it does, because it's when everything's really level, it just does a little bit here, but there's just a lot there are a lot of moving pieces right now. So, there may be more that as we go, things, there's a lot of stuff, like the stuff that came down just recently, executive order. If you buy a US made car, that there's you can claim all of your interest on your taxes.
How long? That's probably not immediate. That probably takes a little while to
I don't
implement.
know. And then the other one was that, and I need to do some more research on it, but it was, if you buy an American made car, there will be no sales tax from the federal government. Okay. And I was just like, those are market things. That's like, so how does that change it for us? So, we'll have to see if that's something that we, once we know that it's enacted, what does that mean for us? Because it may really shift the type of car that dealers are buying. If that filters down to not used, franchise, whatever, but filters down to the independent and used car market.
Yep.
We'll find out.
Good.
And George, love you,
Market
George.
Watch
Looking forward to your Market Watch data, because on Facebook, as we all know, 78.89% of all statistics
it's up to
are
0.91 now, George. So, yeah.
Well, and that's, George, you're absolute. That's
right.
That's why there's just, Jim has always been. I remember you were saying years ago, you were in a peer group. And we're just like, where are they coming up with these numbers? Because and we've talked to other dealers. It's like, where are we coming up with these numbers? Because you'll see people that will show these massive inflated, and they're the best, or the cream of the crop, and then they just burn out and die, crash. And we've seen that happen a few times.
Maybe the numbers weren't real.
Maybe the numbers weren't real. Yeah, and so it's also, what can we learn from that? But we're excited about that. Be looking for that, some announcements on that come April. We're almost in April.
Yeah.
And it won't be an April Fool's thing. So so we're almost in April, and that's going to be something that I think will be really, really helpful. And one of the tracks that Jim and I are just really comfortable in is this kind of multimedia type thing, the podcasts and the recordings and all of that.
And eventually we'll learn to push the right buttons.
Eventually we'll have someone that can do the thing. So it's not like, because I tell you, sometimes I'm like, I forgot how to do this. How do I do this? Because I'm thinking about other things.
True.
So,
and I think, for us, it's about having the conversation. Let's get the important conversations out there where people can participate in them. And let's just not leave these to kind of back rooms and especially. So we just want to get it out there where all dealers can have access to the information. And so
it's like, again, to kind of come circle, we're doing the podcast. It will be released in April is our intent. Alan Keate's going to be a frequent guest. and that, you talked about it in the newcomers group for V8, which usually the last one that we do for the month. And you talked about some of the things that Alan talked about and why those things are important.
Yeah, I didn't use Alan's name. I just, we just talked about we've been having recent conversations around the industry and the opportunities that exist and kind of what the barriers are. So it was more that kind of conversation.
So a little bit of a plug, we talk about V8 all the time. We do have a V8 newcomers group. And so that is one that is more coaching and that as they grow, they will graduate into a different group, and the conversation's going to be a bit different in some of these bigger groups. So if you are someone that's new to learning a lot of these things, you don't have to be new to the industry, but new to learning, because a lot of dealers out there, you think you're a lone island, and it's like, what? There, and we actually got an email about that last week from someone that said, I thought it was just me, and then I found the podcast, and then I was just like, whoa, it's there's a lot of, so if you're looking for some way of doing some like group learning and of things that are relevant right now in the industry, reach out to us. It's a V8 newcomers group, and it's the same pricing as a home group.
Yeah. Maybe you'll be one of the ones snapping photos of the screen, coming up. But so I just had one other, when you said shout out, it made me think we need to put in a mention that Pastime has stepped in. They are one of our founding sponsors, along with Dealer REIT and LHPH Capital. And now Pastime has also stepped in to be a sponsor and advertise.
To be like our marquee sponsor for V8.
In V8 dealer group. So that's just, one more indication that, people are supporting that solution. And so we're grateful to them for stepping in and becoming an advertiser over there.
And so there will be some level of advertising in like the V8 Plus meetings and things like that. So, guys, so many great things on the horizon. I think for everybody, it's just, there's a lot of just cool moving pieces in our world right now that I'm a Pollyanna, and I love to look at things as what can we find that's positive in these things. And I had a long conversation yesterday. My aunt came over to hang out with me on the patio, and we were talking about all the things, and it's just like, that's kind of just where I love to live, is like how can these things work for us? How can they make our lives better? And so it's just, there's a lot of stuff that's really good in the world right now. So excited about that.
Yeah, we're trying to do some good. Yeah. We've got a lot of people joining us in that effort. So we're pleased to keep marching ahead.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. Happy Friday.
Yeah, have a great
weekend.
We
know that you have a lot of choices for your Friday or your drive time or whatever. Thank you for making us a part of that. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you on Wednesday with another White Hat Wednesday topic. All right. Have a great day, everybody.